Despite a vaccination campaign and a rapid international response, the Ebola outbreak continues to spread in DR Congo. On Wednesday, because of the risks to neighboring countries, the World Health Organization has now decided to raise the level of the virus alert to a global emergency. Christine Razana Mahasowa, a prominent political and several times minister, was unanimously elected as head of the lower house of Malagasy Parliament. This political dean had already occupied this position between February and May 2014. 10 years ago, the General Assembly of the United Nations declared July 18th Nelson Mandela International Day, a day to honor the work of the former South African president in favor of peace and freedom. That's all for our top stories today. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. As the Ebola virus threatens to spread from the big city of Goma to neighboring countries of the Democratic Republic of Congo, the World Health Organization has recognized on Wednesday, July 17th, the hemorrhagic fever epidemic as a global public health emergency. The decision to raise the alert level was made by a panel of WHO experts.
Although there is no evidence yet of local transmission in either Goma or Uganda, these two events represent a concerning geographical expansion of the virus. As a result of this concern for potential further spread, the committee recommended that I declare the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern, FIC, and I have accepted that advice.
This decision comes after the discovery of a first case of deadly Ebola in Goma, a city near the border with Rwanda. Experts expressed their disappointment with the delay in funding of the Ebola response.
Unless the international community steps up and funds the response now, we will be paying for this outbreak for a long time to come.
Despite an extensive vaccination campaign and a rapid international response, the epidemic has continued to spread in DR Congo since a new focus began last summer. The virus has infected more than 2,500 people, of whom nearly 1,700 have died. WHO also recommends that DR Congo's borders remain open, believing that closed borders would be counterproductive. Elected as the head of the lower house of the Malagasy Parliament by unanimous vote of the 147 voters, 100%, Christine Hadijoana Razana Mahasowa, former Minister of Justice between 2009 and 2013 and President of the Malagasy National Assembly from February to May 2014, becoming the first woman to hold this position. Since July 16th, she has been making her comeback to head the institution she has already led before. Christine Razana Mahasowa was also supported by 16 opposition MPs, a support that gives rise to some questions but which can be explained. According to these MPs, their approach is motivated by the desire to assume the role of stabilizer of the institution, refusing to be a beacon in democracy before asserting that having voted for the pro-power candidate does not oblige the TIM to follow her steps throughout the parliamentary term. Even if the choice of opposition members seems to send a contrary message, the party of former Malagasy President Marc Ravalomanana intends to play its role as opponent at the National Assembly. Considered very close and faithful to the President of the Republic, Andry Rajoelina, Christine Razana Mahasowa chose to make the fight against corruption her main target within the very parliament of which she is the member. It is very easy to break and destroy. The real heroes are those who make peace and build, Nelson Mandela declared. 101 years after his birth, his example of courage and compassion continues to inspire the world. This year, Nelson Mandela Foundation dedicates Mandela International Day to action against poverty, honoring Madiba's leadership and dedication as affectionately known in the fight against poverty and the promotion of social justice for all. For 67 years, Nelson Mandela had dedicated his life to serve humanity. As a human rights lawyer, prisoner of conscience, international architect of peace, and the first democratically elected president of a free South Africa. In November 2009, the United Nations General Assembly declared July 18th Nelson Mandela International Day in honor of the contribution made by the former South African president to the culture of peace and freedom. A resolution of the General Assembly which recognizes the values defended by Nelson Mandela and his dedication to serve humanity, which is demonstrated throughout his humanitarian action in the settlement of armed conflicts, reconciliation and international communication, the promotion and protection of human, child and other vulnerable rights, gender equality, the fight against poverty, and the promotion of social justice. This resolution recognizes the contribution he had made to the struggle for democracy internationally and to the promotion of a culture of peace throughout the world. Despite strong resistance from large carbon dioxide emitters, South Africa, 14th largest polluter in the world according to Greenpeace, became the first country on the continent on June 1st to introduce a carbon tax entirely at the expense of business corporates.
I think the whole issue of just transition is important, particularly of low-income workers or those working in coal mines, that they shouldn't be made to feel the brunt of policies on climate change. The burden needs to be equally shared, particularly
in the mining industry, a sector already in crisis. 6,800 direct and indirect jobs will be eliminated in the next 2 years because of the carbon tax, warned the National Chamber of Mines, which worries the producers.
As I said, we employ about 400 people. If carbon tax get to a point where we simply cannot afford it, there are no other ways to reduce our emissions, and we will simply be forced to close our plant, and that will mean the loss of around 400 jobs.
But as it is now, it means for the next 3 years we'll have a tax that will send a signal but effectively will not really contribute to reduce emissions. That is our fear. And when we look at the time frame that we have, it feels like 3 years lost, which we can't really afford.
On the field, the oil industry has already passed on the tax to consumers by increasing the price of fuels. The national electricity company, Eskom, with a debt of 26 billion euros, supplies most of its electricity with coal-fired power plants. It is the biggest polluter in South Africa, responsible for 30% of its carbon dioxide emissions, according to Greenpeace. Asi Bonanga, a clever blend of Xhosas and Zulu notes, dotted with originality and modernity, a cult song released at the height of apartheid that has sounded for decades as the rhythm of rapprochement. The author, Clegg, just passed away at the age of 66 after several years of fighting cancer. He played a major role in South Africa by uniting the Rainbow Nation through his music. Clegg drew his inspiration from the Zulu culture to create revolutionary music, where wild African rhythms coexist with guitar, electric keyboard, and accordion. He had been successful with his group Savuka. In 1988, their song Asi Bonanga was dedicated to Nelson Mandela, who was then a prisoner and whose photos were forbidden. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa greeted the memory of this musician in a statement on Wednesday, saying, "An exceptional compatriot and an icon of social cohesion and anti-racism. Clegg will always live in our hearts and in our homes as we listen to his music, a moving blend of cultural celebration and political resistance," he added. During the worst hours of the racist regime, his songs were banned. To get around censorship, he had then to perform with his band Jaluka, trained with the Zulu musician Sipho, in universities, churches, migrant homes, and private homes. Despite all, the apartheid police had banned some of his concerts and the singer was repeatedly arrested, accused of violating the laws on racial segregation. The title Asi Bonanga, We Have Not Seen It in Zulu language, worldwide hit dedicated to Nelson Mandela, the hero of the anti-apartheid struggle. Some years after the end of apartheid, the author and hero of this song, now free, found themselves on a stage in Frankfurt in Germany for a concert as magical as unexpected. As Johnny Clegg sang Asi Bonanga, the audience stood up like one man. The singer explains, I saw someone from the corner of my eye behind me who was on the stage dancing. It was Nelson Mandela. It was a shock. I didn't even know he was there, said Johnny Clegg. At the end of the song, Nelson Mandela said, it's music and dance that make me at peace with the world. Simply put, music allows to federate and to gather, whether one is black or white. Despite a vaccination campaign and a rapid international response, the Ebola outbreak continues to spread in DR Congo. On Wednesday, because of the risks to neighboring countries, the World Health Organization has now decided to raise the level of the virus alert to a global emergency. Christine Razana Mahasowa, a prominent political and several times minister, was unanimously elected as head of the lower house of Malagasy Parliament. This political dean had already occupied this position between February and May 2014. 10 years ago, the General Assembly of the United Nations declared July 18th Nelson Mandela International Day, a day to honor the work of the former South African president in favor of peace and freedom. That's the end of our newscast of the day, but keep watching Gabon 24 for further news.